of course, we have at the center the Secretary General of the Southern Africa People Solidarity Network, Janet Joe, who is going to lead us with a presentation of the outcomes of the gatherings, different events that took place in this week that just ended on the sidelines of the SADC heads of state. And Janet, over to you to share with us the outcomes of the SADC People Summit.
Thank you very much, and a very good morning to you all. And thank you to the media fraternity for coming for this press briefing or media advisory in terms of the outcomes and the discussions and conversations that we had during the SADC People Summit, which we held from the 15th to the 16th of August 2024 here in Harare. My mandate is very simple. I'm going to go through the communique, which we developed and was validated in a closing ceremony by the participants of the SADC People Summit 2024. When I'm done with that, I'm sure it will be open for the panel for any questions that you have to take up any questions that you're going to raise with regards to the SADC People Summit and probably the way forward on some of the issues. So I'll go into the communique right now and read it through. The different people of Southern Africa gathered in Zimbabwe under the banner of the SADC People Summit. The Southern Africa People Solidarity Network welcomed over 500 people representing mining communities, youth, farmers, religious leaders and faith-based organizations, women's rights groups, persons with disabilities, informal economy workers, human rights defenders, and various other social movements during the annual SADC People Summit in Harare, held between the 15th to the 16th of August 2024. Democracy and inclusion. Inspired and guided by the scripture, Isaiah 1 verse 17, learn to do good, seek justice, defend the oppressed, bring justice to the fatherless, plead to the widow's cause. We hereby make the following submissions. We are cognizant of the developments noted in various sectors. For example, in health, marked progress is noted in reducing HIV and AIDS prevalence, with cases dropping from 868,000 in 2010 to 413,600 in 2022. While all member states are developing national strategies for HIV prevention among key populations and adolescent girls and young women. In agriculture, set against the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, famously known as CAADP, and the Malabo Declaration target of 6% annual growth rate for agriculture value addition to gross domestic product, it is recognized that the implementation of the Regional Agricultural Investment Plan surpassed the targets. In the education sector, progress is more than 80% of member states aligning their national qualification frameworks with the SADC qualification framework, and this is applauded, although challenges in infrastructure and qualified teacher shortages persist. In employment and youth, the drafting of the SADC Youth Empowerment Policy Framework is recognized. Our concern is noted about continued youth unemployment, with the industrial employment share far below targets. In climate change, SADC Secretariat's efforts to enhance member states' capacity on climate change resilience under the Global Climate Change Alliance Plus is recognized. In gender, we commend the SADC heads of state and government for the significant strides made in advancing gender equality and the rights of women and girls in the region. The adoption and implementation of the SADC Protocol on Gender and Development, the SADC Model Law on Ending Child Marriage, and various national policies aimed at promoting women's empowerment are noteworthy achievements. In trade, we recognize progress in regional trade initiatives, including the introduction of a simplified trade regime between Malawi, Mozambique, and Tanzania, while emphasizing prepare for the African Continental Free Trade Area implementation. And this can be through capacity building, policy harmonization, and infrastructure development to ensure widespread benefits across the region. As we gathered in common accord, the participants at the Harare Summit challenged dominant narratives and discourses and discussed the rights, experiences, and aspirations of those most affected by neoliberal domination and marginalization in the region. Committed once again to the inclusion of all women, men, youth, and children of the Southern Africa Development Community in the decision-making, in the decisions taken by member states through solidarity and collective action for a more just, peaceful, and prosperous community for all. Collectively agreed to engage and influence the SADC heads of state and government to promote and support the articulated aspirations and hopes of poor and marginalized groups, including women, youth, and persons with disabilities in the region, though not limited to these groups only. In a time of great promise and global uncertainty, as representatives of civil society organizations, mining communities, youth, farmers, religious leaders, and faith organizations, women's groups, persons with disabilities, informal economy workers, human rights defenders, and various other social movements, we share with the heads of state and government and the people of the SADC our shared reflections, concerns, and recommendations on the prevailing conditions that affect the men, women, and children of the region. I will now turn to the different sectors that met. Under the natural resource governance, the SADC region is endowed with mineral resources that place the region in a position to catalyze development if these resources are judiciously and sustainably exploited. However, the global tax architecture that serves the interests of the developed countries at the expense of deepening poverty and inequalities and depriving the region of optimizing its mineral revenues need to be addressed. And as the SADC heads of state and government summit is going on, our call is for them to support the UN Tax Convention to help standardize the tax system and minimize the practice of evasion and avoidance of tax that bleeds the region of the much needed resources for development. We call on them to empower local community leaders to engage with governments and multinational companies in negotiating natural resource contracts through building their capacity and giving them power to engage. And this calls on the role of the traditional leaders in the natural resource governance sector in the region. We speak with a unified voice in support of the UN Tax Convention and avoid negotiating in silos as individual member countries, which will erode our region's negotiating power. We encourage member states to domesticate the SADC Public Finance Management Law, which inter alia deals with the illicit financial flows from the region. Implement policies that enhance the region's control over the resources that the region owns to ensure that resource exploitation benefits the region meaningfully. Under the democracy, human rights, and governance, we took note of the shrinking civic space in some member states across the region, and we call on all SADC heads of state and government to preserve open and constitutional democracies that we so wish to have. We advocate for the establishment of sustainable living conditions for all people, to acknowledge the essential connection between political stability and economic prosperity. With this two. 1, strengthen regional electoral systems to encourage broad participation from marginalized groups and improve dispute resolution to restore confidence in democracy while enhancing legal and institutional frameworks to protect human rights, ensure judicial independence, combat corruption, transparency and accountability in governance. 2, we call on them to repeal laws that restrict freedoms of expression, assembly, and association to ensure the safety of human rights defenders and establish a task force to review and revise restrictive laws affecting civil society and human rights defenders. 3, we support local governments through devolution to support local governments decision making. And lastly, we call for a guarantee of universal access to water, sanitation, health services by investing in infrastructure and reform public sector institutions to improve service delivery and reduce bureaucracy. Under the economic justice cluster, we recognize the urgent need to address the following issues which act as barriers to economic growth, justice, and regional development, such as increased inequalities and poverty in the region. We therefore urge the SADC heads of state and government to 1, prioritize and significantly invest in social services aligning with regional and international protocols and conventions that they have ratified. 2, for them to uphold findings of the AU high-level panel report on illicit financial flows, which recommended the establishment of public beneficial ownership registers among member states. We call on them to establish a regional gender-sensitive urban design manual for the extend social protection for workers in the informal economy, create one-stop border posts across the region to streamline and expedite the free movement of goods and people, and fully implement the simplified tariff regime. For them to adopt a beneficial ownership transparent standard for the region to guide member states in strengthening and establishing beneficial ownership legislation and registers. We call on the heads of state and government to take action to address the challenges of investment and trade with the European Union in the broader context of the new evolving global economy and geopolitical situation. For them to take ownership of funding their development agenda to reduce reliance on debt and aid. We call on them to unite and negotiate with the EU as a common bloc, guided by the SADC Trade Protocol, especially on the EU Economic Partnership Agreements, famously known as the EPAs. Until this unity is achieved, the people of Southern Africa recommend the abandonment of the EPA process, that is the negotiations, the ratifications, and the implementation thereof. To develop a progressive framework to shape the future of critical minerals. And this includes a focus on increasing beneficiation and value addition of these vital resources. We also call upon SADC leaders to protect local food producers from agricultural liberalization policies which potentially open food markets to unjust competition from highly subsidized European farmers. To accelerate the implementation of the SADC industrialization strategy and roadmap of 2015 to 2063 as a means to increase intra-SADC trade, which currently is at 17% of the total SADC trade. On gender justice and women's rights, we acknowledge the role played by women in society and seriously concerned on the gendered division of labor, economic disparities, reinforced gender stereotypes, inequalities, and the undermining of women and girls' rights and empowerment. And we urge the SADC heads of state and government to institutionalize gender-responsive budgeting and policies that are inclusive of women's rights and needs, particularly those from marginalized groups and communities across the region. For them to recognize the economic value of paid care work in national budgets and implement policies that reflect its importance. We call on the SADC heads of state and government and member states to expedite the implementation of affirmative action policies that ensure women's active participation in political, economic, and social decision-making spheres at all levels. For them to prioritize the reform of the land tenure system to ensure that women have secure land rights. We call on member states to adopt a multi-sectoral approach to comprehensively address the issue of child marriages and violence against women and girls. Lastly, we call on them to domesticate the SADC model law on eradicating child marriages and protecting children already in marriage. Under the youth and students movements, the future of young people in the region can only be achieved through peace, freedom, justice, and respect for human rights. We urge the SADC heads of state and government to therefore invest in youth empowerment through job creation, entrepreneurship opportunities, and access to markets and the capital. We urge them to advance an accessible, decolonized education system in the region that recognizes local talent and innovation. We call on them to allow the free movement of goods and people in the region, as well as the removal of visas to allow true regional integration and development for young people. And lastly, we call on them to promote the inclusion and full participation of young people in decision-making processes. Under climate change, which is the last cluster, we recognize the unprecedented and interdependent crisis of climate change and debt characterized by a debilitating public debt burden that dents SADC ambitions for climate justice and resilience building. The severe repercussions of environmental sustainability, social justice, and economic for the government to quantify the climate-induced losses and damage, to make a case for funding for SADC member states through grant-based and not loan-based financing from the global north, and alleviate the debt burden and increase climate mitigation and adaptation efforts. For them to prioritize and create green climate budgets at central and sub-national levels. This is key to resource agroecology, indigenous knowledge systems, and seed sovereignty for food systems transformation. We call on them to adopt ecofeminist approaches to combat climate change and enhance regional cooperation on climate resilience projects, such as water harvesting. For them to stop the expansion of industrial agriculture and use of petrochemicals and synthetic fertilizers in food systems. We call on them to mainstream gender transformative and inclusion approaches in the climate discourse through heightened sensitization, decision-making, and education. We call for greater inclusion of communities in the exploitation of resources and the inclusion of protection risk management, participation of women, and resilience issues in SADC disaster risk reduction strategy. We call on them to prioritize investments in renewable energy infrastructure, such as solar, wind, and hydropower projects to replace fossil fuels in the energy mix. Endorsing the fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty is key in renewable energy transition. The SADC heads of state and government and member states must begin to claim reparations from developed countries to invest in renewable energy and all transition efforts. And lastly, for them to develop a consolidated protocol on climate change management that bridges gaps emanating from fragmented frameworks and protocols dealing with environmental management. We, the people of Southern Africa, hereby submit this communique to the SADC heads of state and government with an unwavering commitment to complementing government efforts in advancing the same articulated above. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet. So over to you, media fraternity. If there are any questions directed to the presenter or to any of the panelists are here, can be entertained. You can show by raising your hand, then you are recognized. I see one there here from Newswalk. Yes.
So, that's what we find out. I don't know, something for the design of the United Nations express concern over the human situation in Zimbabwe. These are our concerns. So, I just wanted to find out the summit noted 10 concerning the human rights situation.
Right. Any other question before I give to the panel to respond to questions? Another question? Okay, it seems so far is the only question. Over to you, only. For example, in Swaziland, you was participating in the governance and human rights cluster. You take on that question.
Okay, thank you for the question. I think as you are raising it, it was a concern for the UN, but also it was a concern for us delegates from the region. But we want to commend the local organizing community, but also our organizers as led by the Secretariat of Subsin. That we had quite peaceful summit. We had no events that disorganized or destabilized our activities within the 2 days of our meetings here, and we were able, as the people of SADC, to meet and deliberate on the issues that we wanted to deliberate on without any eventualities. Of course, building towards the summit, it really destabilized us. The fact that up until the last minute, we were not sure if the summit would be a success. But finally, it was a success, and hence we came out with the declaration that we are having today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? It appears the statement is so precise and clear, and we do not have any further questions or comments. And Secretary General of the Church, just send it to the maybe 1 minute.
Oh, all right. Sure. Just to say thank you to the media fraternity for coming to this important event. I think we should recognize the fact that this took a lot of effort for us to be here. We had a lot of challenges, but I think overall we managed to circumvent the challenges and managed to put together a very successful People's Summit. And for you, the media, to be here and to listen to our communique, I mean, it means a lot to us, and we hope that you are going to communicate precisely this. It's very important to share the outcome and for the general public to know. So in my capacity as the chairperson of the local organizing committee, I think my parting shot would be just to say we need to continue to unite, to show solidarity. We've got a lot of challenges as a region, but I think together with solidarity we'll be able to address all the challenges. Otherwise, thank you so much for being part of this.
Okay, so we have Reverend Tony Nzinga, who's from Angola, and Angola is passing on the baton. As you know that Angola is the outgoing chairperson of the SADC, and equally Reverend Tony is here also to pass on the baton to us as the people of Zimbabwe. We are now chairing the. So over to you, and a few comments from you, Reverend.
Thank you very much. It's very good to be here, and we are very happy to see what the debate and it's our hope that everyone and everybody, especially the organizations that have been engaged, to take seriously the agreements that the debate produced. This is not just a communique, it's a program. The issues are just on the paper, but we have them done in the lives of the people we are talking about. So thank you very much for all this. And this process, especially the space that has been created some long time ago, which we call now People Summit, have to continue. And we need the people to be engaged in the process, and we have to do what we can. Not just because we can, but because I'm a Christian. God help us to do the best so that not just the changes, but the life become much better for everyone, everywhere. This is our message, and we'll be behind the Zimbabwean movement, not out, but we are in the back. Whatever, we will try our best to continue this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much on behalf of Zimbabwe Council of Churches. Firstly, of thanking the church to work with all of you here. A church has a great constituency. We meet people 52 times a year. In every corner there's a church. So working with you, we are proud because you are part of teaching the people. You are part of helping us. In church, we are saying you are our deacons, which you are servicing a very departments and teaching the society and helping us. So we say thank you very much. Also, we thank the SADC to give a space for this, what we are doing, to listen as a region. Bless, God bless you all.
Thank you very much. Representing the youth sector, it was a great opportunity to have young people from the region engaging and actively participating. And this communique clarifies the real issues, challenges that are affecting young people in the region. And I think what is also important is for this communique, the recommendation would also want to see the SADC heads of state and government implementing these recommendations so that we can ensure that young people within the region are able to realize their aspirations. And I think it's also a call on the part of young people, the civil society, and other marginalized groups, the people within SADC, to also ensure that we are able to push and also ensure that we are also going to complete the heads of state and government efforts to also ensure that these recommendations, they also become a reality, and we are also able to transform the lives of citizens within the region. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'd like to say that I think the successful chairship of SADC will lie in the inclusion and engagement of the people, because SADC is a people movement. So we hope and believe that the leadership will be as inclusive as possible in all the deliberations and all interventions that will be happening in Harare now that Zimbabwe has taken up the leadership. We believe that people will be at the center of the SADC agenda. And I'll conclude by saying this proverb that you cannot shave a man's head in his absence. So let's put people at the center of SADC. Thank you.
Thank you. I think my final words will be to first stand in solidarity with all the suffering people of the region and the continent at large, but also more especially the suffering people of Palestine and the children that are dying, the women that are suffering there. We stand in solidarity with all those. And as a network who believe in movement building, in the space that we are facing, in the challenges of shrinking civic space that we are facing, we are not able to do our work effectively. Hence the call on our governments to open up the space so that we can be able to implement this program that we have taken today as the people of SADC. Thank you.
Thank you. Talking on behalf of the people of South Africa, I would just like to thank the Substance Secretariat for organizing a successful People's Summit. As it has been related here, there were challenges, but I think we managed to work around those challenges. Hence, we had a successful summit. But also, I would just like to indicate that articles of SADC, they highlight the importance of civil society in working together with SADC and also the member countries. So I think we should be seen as partners in building better countries and better region, because we are not destroying, but we want to add value to what the governments are doing, and also to make the region and the countries to be a better place for our people. So we are encouraged by knowing that the SADC is currently working on formalizing the relations between civil society and the SADC. And this also, it would be great if it can cascade into member countries as well, so that we improve the relations. We are not seen as people who are causing problems, but we are seen as partners in development of our countries and the regions. We love our countries, and we do everything that, we feel that it's gonna be progressive, it's gonna help and improve the lives of the people. We are not about destroying anything, but we are about building a civil society. So thank you, comrades, for making it possible for us to be here to have the summit. And we are also looking forward to the good leadership of the Zimbabwe people as you'll be leading the SADC. So everything of the best.
Thank you very much. And let me just take this opportunity to thank all the participants at the SADC People Summit 2024 in Harare, our local participants from the various communities that gathered in Harare in different spaces and venues to discuss critical issues in line with reclaiming SADC for people's development. Let me also thank our regional delegates who came. We had quite a number of them coming from different countries, and we wish them a safe passage back home as you travel. We thank you for the solidarity that you gave to us. It was not easy for you to travel and come to Zimbabwe. There were many doubts being cast about us hosting the SADC People Summit. There were so many questions from many regional delegates about their safety and security, given the context. But you braved it and you managed to come, and we wish you well as you go back. And as the Reverend has said, this is a program. The People Summit is not an event, it is a process. There must be post-summit activities, engagements, as we give each other solidarity and ensure that it is a living document amongst us. Probably just as a way of process, yesterday, as we told you, that we were asked by the authorities that we should submit a copy for them to review before we hand over to the incoming SADC chair. We did that, but we did as a soft copy. But this morning I was told that they want a signed one. Submitted, they review, and they'll give us a time and date for us to submit to the SADC chair. So that is just the process that we have to do. They want a hard copy, which is signed, committing that it is the document that we are submitting to them. So we'll do that, we'll sign, and we'll wait for their instruction and feedback in terms of the handover, which we will continue to communicate with you in terms of that progress and engagement. Thank you very much, our media fraternity, for covering this, for live streaming this, and we hope that many others have listened and heard what the people gathered to discuss and what we are calling the SADC States and Government Summit to take note of, and especially the incoming chairperson and the leadership of Zimbabwe for the coming year. Thank you very much and have a great day ahead.